Hello, and welcome to a successful transition from monogamy to open. It's Friday, and it's our last day of talking about emotional intelligence. We're going to talk about the last step, which is relationship management. Now, we all know that relationships take work, and sometimes we see those people where they seem to do it so effortlessly, and we envy their ability to make their relationships look so smooth. And what they have learned and what they have become skilled at is being able to have those skills of emotional intelligence, and especially that final skill of relationship management. And relationship management skills are things that we all can learn, and and the last one fits into the three previous emotional skill sets, which is the self-awareness, the self-management, and the social awareness. Now, in the book that I've talked about, I've boiled them down to try to give you 5 strategies each day. And today I'm going to give you one extra one. The book for each of those 4 has anywhere from about 15 to 18 different strategies. So if this is something you really feel you could benefit from, I will give you the book and the author's name again so you can get it off Amazon and start using it. And I will give you that at the end of this video so that you have that, because I do think it is a very helpful book, and it is a lot of easy strategies to learn from. But the 5 plus 1 that we're going to talk about today are the number 1 is avoid giving mixed signals. Now think about it. When you're driving, stoplights are great ways that keep drivers from understanding when you get to an intersection who stops, who goes. It makes it very clear. And if you think about the times when you've come to a stoplight and it's out, it's not working for some reason. And often drivers seem hesitant. They're not sure which side goes and which side should stop. And it becomes a lot more messy because the signals are mixed and we don't really understand them. So people are going to trust what they hear and people are going to trust what they see over what they hear. So if you're in a bad mood and you say things are fine, and yet your body language, your facial expression, your tone of voice is telling everyone that you're not, they're going to go by what they see rather than what they say. And that's a classic indicator of mixed signals. So you want to try and avoid your mixed signals as much as possible, especially with using your self-management skills. You can think about your own emotions and decide whether it's a good time to talk about what is going on at that time, or whether you need to talk about it later. So often it's not that we don't realize that now is not the right time to talk about it. It's that we don't talk about it again later. So then people are still left hanging as to what was going on in that moment. And so that's the important piece of not giving mixed signals, is that if you can make sure that if this time is not the time to talk about it, you find a time later to clear that up so that the people around you know what's going on. Number 2 is remember that little things pack a punch. In the stress of our hectic world that we live in, it really appears that the common courtesies are getting lost. I hate to say that they've gotten lost, but in many ways they are getting lost. And with the decline of good manners and having those courtesies, we really show a lot fewer expressions of appreciation. And showing appreciation to people is very important. So in all of your relationships, whether they be professional relationships, personal relationships, it is very important to remember to express that appreciation. The simple things like please, thank you, I'm sorry, I appreciate whatever you did earlier. Letting people know that can go a very long way to having the communication in your relationships and having them go much more smoothly. And showing that appreciation on a regular interval, not just every great once in a while. I think oftentimes people in personal relationships get into that feeling of, oh, well, they know I appreciate them, they know I love them, I don't have to say it. Yes, you do. I'll just say it quite blankly. Yes, you do. And the more you can, you want to say it genuinely, but it does make a big difference when you can say that on very regular intervals and not just assume that your partner still remember that. Number three is make sure you take feedback well. Feedback is a very unique gift that's meant to help us improve in the ways that we can't necessarily see ourselves. And since we don't know when we're going to receive feedback and whether or not at that moment we're in a place that maybe we want to receive feedback, it can catch us off guard. And so it's very important to be able to rely on our self-awareness and our self-management skills in that moment to be able to take that feedback graciously. And if possible, assume that the person who's giving you the feedback has your best interest at heart. Especially if this is someone close to you. Hopefully this is not someone who's out to get you or out to just say mean things about you. It is somebody who really has your best interest at heart if they're giving you feedback. So try to remember that when the person is giving you the feedback. Remember, and how you decide to respond to it. Think about that list you made, the emotion versus reason list. And that's a good time to use that strategy after you receive the feedback to decide, well, what do I want to do about this feedback? Emotionally, it may sting, emotionally, it may hurt, but rationally, there may be parts of your brain saying, well, that person may have a point. Maybe that is something I need to work on. And so that sort of emotion versus reason list can help you in that moment to think more clearly about the feedback. And number four is not only learn to take feedback well, but make sure that feedback you give is direct and constructive. While accepting feedback is a very important skill, giving feedback is a really good skill to know how to do well. And that requires all the four areas of your emotional intelligence to really give good feedback. You've got to be self-aware of how you feel about giving this person this feedback and how comfortable you really are doing it, because it may be very awkward for you. You may feel insecure talking about this problem and your own fears of what it means to have to say this to somebody. Your own self-management skills of the information you deem about how to talk about this with the person, and your social awareness of really noticing how the person's accepting it and what's really the best way to give this person feedback. Do they really like it very kind of direct and to the point, or do they need some softening to make it easier for them to hear it? And really remember, constructive feedback consists of two parts. It's not just sharing your opinion, but it's also offering possible solutions for the change of the feedback you're giving. And also ask for that person's thoughts after you've given the feedback. Because maybe your possible solution, they may have their own solutions to the problem that may piggyback or be different than your solution, and the two of you can talk about the various solutions that you guys are coming up with together. Number five is building trust. And trust is a very important resource in a relationship. And it really is built over time. And the more you use it, it really doesn't deplete it. It can actually strengthen trust when you use it. But it's very difficult to manage in a relationship because, how do you really build trust? Often we do it so early in the start of a relationship that we don't really notice even how we're doing it. And, it really is about that open communication, that willingness to share with another person, that consistency in your words and your deeds, your actions and behaviors over time, and the reliability of following through with whatever agreements you're making with that person, which is actually the same way you rebuild trust if it's been broken. I often see couples where the trust has been broken in a relationship and they're going, how do we rebuild this? How do we rebuild? Well, you rebuild it the same way you did at the beginning. You have to have that open communication. You have to, and the person who feels hurt has to have gotten past the hurt enough and past their anger enough that they allow the other person to rebuild the trust. So often they want to hold on to their anger and hurt because they're afraid of being hurt again, that then they don't allow the other person to actually rebuild the trust no matter how hard they work. And the two of you are working against each other rather than together. So the person who's been hurt has to be willing to trust again. They have to be willing to let go of the hurt, let go of the anger, and actually go through that process of rebuilding. Otherwise, you're never really going to get anywhere. And number 6, our extra strategy is tackle a tough conversation. Especially when you're dealing with open relationships, this is very important because you are going to have a lot of tough conversations. This is new territory for most of us. It's sometimes things that we never really thought we'd be doing or engaging in or having to talk about. And so there are often a lot of tough conversations that you need to deal with. And so learning how to tackle those tough conversations is really critical to have a successful transition and do open relationships well. And there's 6 steps that can make tough conversations easier. Number 1 is start with agreement. Where do you agree with each other? It might even be that the only thing you agree upon is that this is going to be a tough conversation. Okay, at least you agree on something. Ask the person to help you understand their side. You know, people want to be heard. Whether it's in business or whether it's personally, we want to be heard. And if we don't feel heard, we feel very frustrated. So avoid the frustration and ask the person to state their point of view, you know, and manage your own feelings as needed, and really focus on understanding their side and what they're saying. Number 3 is resist the urge to plan your rebuttal. So often when we're in conversations, especially when we're in difficult conversations, we're more about winning than we are about creating understanding, compromise, a win-win situation. And we're in our head thinking about what we're going to say once the person stops talking. So you cannot think about and really listen to what the other person's saying if you're thinking about what you're going to say next. So use your self-management skills and focus on what the other person is saying. Really listen to them. Remember, you're going to have your time to talk. Now is your time to focus on what they're saying. So now, number 4 is to really help the other person understand your side as well. You know, once they told you their side, now is your time to help them understand your perspective. You know, describe what you feel. What are your thoughts? What are your ideas? What are your reasons behind your thought process in what you're discussing and what you're trying to work out? And try to communicate very clearly and simple. Don't let all other past arguments and past issues, don't be bringing them into it. Keep it focused on what's going on and keep it simple. Number 5 is move the conversation forward. So once you both understand each other's perspective, you know, you might still disagree, but you've got to find ways to keep moving it forward. Again, try to find common ground. You know, maybe talk about how this is so tough, how you're both frustrated that you're having trouble seeing the other one's point of view, and maybe you need more information. Find ways to keep moving the conversation forward. And number 6 is even, you know, resolution can be tough, so you want to keep in touch after. You know, you might have to take a break from the conversation. You may not have fully resolved it. It may still be a work in progress. You might have to agree to disagree for a while and say, we're going to have to table this and come back to it. But keep in touch. Don't sweep it under the rug. Don't just stop having the conversation because it's tough. Keep talking about it. Keep checking in with them. See how satisfied they are. See if they've had any additional thoughts they want to share with you, or if you have additional thoughts that you want to share with them, so that you don't let that conversation just sit and do nothing. So that's the last part of relationship management. As I say, all of this has really been taken from the book Emotional Intelligence 2.0, and it is if you look on Amazon, there's probably 5 or 6 books that all have the exact same title. So to make sure you're getting the right one, it's the one by Travis Bradberry and Jean Greaves, Greav as in Victor, ES. That's the one you want. And you want to get a new copy because in the very back of the book, there is a personalized code. It's in this little orange section. And that personalized code, it comes one to a book, so it's one to a person. And when you start reading the book, you'll go to their website, put in the code, and take the quiz. Now, be honest. You don't want to, say you're better at you're dealing with your emotions than you really are. You want to get an accurate score so that then once you finish the book, once you've been working on the exercises for a while, you can go back in and take it again and see how much you've improved. It isn't a contest. You're not trying to win anything or impress anybody. It's for your own growth. It's for to help you with your relationships. So that's all for today. I think even though I had a number of people who are really, interested in getting more information on working on dealing with jealousy, dealing on envy, better understanding compersion, all of which I think are very important. I'm a big believer that you've got to have good foundational skills before you try and advance to more intermediate and advanced emotions, such as dealing with jealousy and compersion. So I think I'm going to repeat something that I did about 6-8 months ago. And some of you may have seen this and some of you have not. So I think it's a great piece to do. It's called the 7 Strategies for Better Relationships and Communication. And it's going to take about 2 weeks because it breaks up into about 8 to 10 different segments to get it so that they're not too long. So I think we'll do that over the next couple weeks. And then we'll talk about jealousy and compersion and envy, which are extremely important to talk about. So for now, have a great weekend. I will see you all next week. Keep inviting people to the group. It's growing wonderfully. We're getting some great conversations, and I look forward to seeing you then. Thanks so much. Bye-bye.